All right, let's do this.
Welcome, first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table, especially our next incredible guest, who joins us today to talk about the intersection between race and sports, mental health, leadership, equality, social injustice, and white privilege. So grab your favorite deli sandwich or bagel and your favorite beverage, and let's do this together in the Sports. We're joined today by Ben Braun, former head men's basketball coach at Cal, Eastern Michigan, Siena Heights, and Rice. And, you know, as I was prepping for the show, three things really stood out to me, not necessarily in any particular order, but, you know, I want to talk about your upbringing, obviously, and how you rebuilt programs and were brought in to do such amazing jobs at the places you were at. But you minored in African American studies in 1975, and you know a lot of things stood out to me about your coaching career, but that wasn't even really a thing back then, especially from a white Jewish male. You know, at Wisconsin in the Midwest. You know, nonetheless, why did you choose to minor in African American studies?
Well, a couple of things, and that's interesting. You've done your homework, obviously. At the time, this is the early 70s, went to school. So most of my teammates on the team were African American. I got to know some of the professors on campus who encouraged me to go to their classes. I found them fascinating. I was not a great high school student. I should have been. I was at New Trier High School, arguably maybe the top public school, high school in the country. And I was always into sports. I didn't really take academics seriously, but I really made a connection with my professors at the University of Wisconsin who encouraged me, and many of whom were teaching in African American studies, whether it was literature, science. And so I decided to get a minor. I was taking so many classes. They said, look, you have enough credits to be a double major or a minor. And I found it fascinating. And I also thought it was something that was important because, you know, going into coaching, you're going to be coaching teams. It's important to have an understanding. I wish our present day political people, administration would have an understanding for how this country, you know, is being run, and you know, some of the inequities that are happening today. I think was important. So I really got into the literature, got into some of the history, and I'm really glad I did. And it did help me. You know, it helped me regarding my first coaching job. I remember coaching in high school, inner city of Wisconsin, Racine, Wisconsin. Most of my students were first generation students whose parents didn't graduate from college. So I had the task and challenge of getting them to graduate and go on to college, forget about sports, just in general. And I taught many of these students, and it really helped me because I had an understanding of their background. I had an understanding of what they were up against. And so I thought it was really advantageous. And my high school coach, John Schneider, said, if you want to be a coach, get into a couple things. One, get into psychology, get into guidance and counseling. And then obviously this was another area I thought would help prep me for college, for coaching.
That's very interesting because Jay Billis, who was on the show, he talked about how his high school experience was not something that inspired him, but yet he was still able to overcome that and go to Duke. So, you know, you mentioned Coach Schneider, and, you know, glad you had that experience to, inspire you and get you to think in a way that, you know, maybe a lot of coaches didn't think back then when they were starting out. And, your family went in a completely different direction than you did. You know, your dad was a producer. Your sister is in the movie business. You know, she did some directing and acting, and your brother's an editor. Why did you? Was there any pressure to go in that direction? Or were you?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I just always had a passion for sports. I loved the competition. I loved the discipline. I was a competitive person by nature, wasn't a very good loser. Fortunately, I won more than I lost. I didn't have to deal with losing. I always tell people, if you don't like losing, then win. So, you know, that's one way, but you got to learn. But I really enjoyed the competition. I enjoyed something that would challenge me and challenge others to be their best. And when you're competing, you know, it's like looking in the mirror. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to hide. You can't hide. You're going up against your opponent, and there's a real discipline about it. So I've always enjoyed that. My father encouraged me. My mother encouraged me. to pursue sports, and I just did. I had such a passion for sports. I was always around older kids when I was growing up, and I didn't play with a lot of kids my own age. I found it more challenging to play with older kids who were better than me, and my goal was to try to be better than them. So I always found that as a passion. But I am proud of my family that went into film, and they've done well. My other brother's really successful in real estate. So, to each his own, but I just had a real passion for sports. I still do. I just think there's a real discipline involved. There's a camaraderie involved in the playing and the coaching aspect that lasts a lifetime. I just think that there's shared experiences. Those players that just finished the NBA in the bubble, they're going to be connected forever, for life. And that was a really unique experience. And I think it shows you what the human spirit can do, either under extreme conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that a little later. You've always said that you're a teacher first before a coach.
Yeah, I think Pete Newell always said this. He said, look, if the teaching aspect is really important in coaching, because the best coaches are teachers. You're teaching not only the game, you're teaching about the things I just mentioned, you're teaching life lessons, but you teach players not only what to do and how to do it, but you're really teaching them, as Pete Newell used to say, why you're doing it. And if the players understand why, if students understand why, you're teaching what you're teaching, I think it's really, really important. I didn't have great teachers in a lot of ways growing up, but the ones that inspired me, they had that trait about them. They were great coaches. They could motivate me. They could make classes interesting. I always prided myself in trying to make practices interesting, make my classes interesting, keep the interest of my students, because, it's like Mike Krzyzewski says, if it doesn't matter what he knows a hell of a lot, but if his players don't know anything, he's not a very good coach. He's not a very good teacher. So that always stuck with me, that your players will give back to you what you give to them. And so it's important, and you have a responsibility to give them everything you can, and really take that seriously.
But a lot of times that doesn't happen until you have years of experience, and you were only a high school assistant coach for 2 years before you took the job at Siena Heights, coaching, practicing in a bingo hall.
Yeah.
You didn't have a gym, and how did you sell a message to a program? And then how did you have the patience to wait 3 years to build something before you really turn the corner and put together such an amazing year? Like, it's not easy to have that kind of patience or
Well,
foresight.
I'm an extreme optimist. I've always been an optimist. You have a choice in the way you view things. And if you're a weatherman, is it partly cloudy or mostly sunny? It's mostly sunny. There's no partly cloudy in this thing. You have a choice in how you want to view any situation. And go back to the Holocaust. Go back to people in extreme conditions. The one thing that they had a choice in the end was their mind, their brain, how they looked at their situation. And that's really big, obviously in Jewish culture. And
Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, yeah, the search for meaning, just exactly. I mean, if you want to read one book, read that book. I mean, that's huge. And Elie Wiesel, and you've got to look at some things that really I think challenge you in many ways. But I was an optimist. I didn't know what I didn't know back then. Now if I knew what I knew then, like that, I really wasn't maybe as prepared as I thought I was. I was very confident, very cocky, but my players who still call me coach today, and they're like 2 or 3 years younger than me. I said, what was it like playing for me? He said, you always had this confidence about you. We never really realized you're only a couple of years older than us. We believed in what you said, and you intimidated us because you had great knowledge, but you also challenged us in ways that nobody ever did. So I appreciated that. And that's all I ever tried to do, is took the challenge of making everybody better. My best teachers and coaches made me better. They inspired me, but they challenged me to be better. My parents challenged me to be better. So if you're doing that, you're on your way to becoming a good coach. And that's all I focused on. I didn't really think about the consequences. We were getting our brains beat in first year or two. And in 1 year, we went from, 6-24 to 24-6, something like that in 1 year, because, losing, gets in your craw, and we didn't like it. And the players didn't like it. And we all decided, let's get better. So we went out and we recruited. We actually got that gym sooner than you thought. It was a year later we were playing in that gym, and we were pretty good in that gym. It was like, somebody came down and opened up the skies for us. So
You opened
that's
up the
what it was like.
skies.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but I was fortunate. I learned as much from my players as I hope they learned from me. I've always said that if you don't learn from your players, you're not a very good coach. You're not a very good teacher. The best teachers absolutely learn from their students. And I was coaching a lot of inner city kids from Detroit who weren't very fortunate. I remember going into a home and having a young man didn't want me to make a presentation in his home. I said, look, I have this video. I have this great great presentation. And he said, now, coach, I don't want you to come in. I said, wow, what did I do? Then I realized he had 11 brothers and sisters and their home had a dirt floor. He was too embarrassed to have me come in. He's now, by the way, a bank manager. He's one of the most successful businessmen in the state of Michigan. He was an All-American, and I'll never forget this. His name's Larry Bryant. And I learned from him. He was just being proud. And then as I figured that out, I figured, wow, I'm coaching. I have this duty and this responsibility to coach kids that are a lot less fortunate than me. And I need to give them everything I've got.
Well, that's inspiring for sure. Talking about learning as much, if not more, from the players than they learn from you. And you remind me of John Gruden a lot. You have that look about you, that stare. I remember I watched one of the highlights when you were at Cal, and you called a timeout, and one of the players walked over, and you just, you have to be aware of the cameras and everything. You just looked at him like, come on, man. Like,
yeah.
Just that look like, and you didn't have to say anything. They just knew because they knew you.
It's funny you say that. I've been told, Pete Pengus, a former player of mine, once said to me, he says, Coach, you never had to say a word to me or any of my teammates. He said, it was that look that used to kill us. We were more scared of your look than anything you could say. And when you did say it, you didn't mince words. You took something and said it so simply and so in such a challenging way that we were like, oh man, we got totally undressed and challenged. So I appreciate that. But I think if players know you care about them, you can give them that look. It's like my son, he gives me, he's like, what, like he looks at me like I don't know what I'm doing. But once in a while, he'll give me a look like, okay, Dad, I respect it. I know you caught me. And so he gives me that respect look. And now I think we've connected. But if players and your kids don't respect you, they're not gonna respond. So somehow you got to find a way in. And that's what coaching and teaching and parenting is. Find a way in that your kids and the people you touch believe in you and trust what you're going to tell them. That's all it is.
Well, and be genuine, because they can see right through you if you're not genuine.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Coach, I was curious, all the success you had at Eastern Michigan, and then you go on, you get the job at Cal. Was that a hard decision to take? Obviously, it's a bigger job, but it's a total different environment. You've been in the Midwest your whole life, and was there any thought of that? And did you have to change any of your recruiting of how you did things because you're going after not only a bigger program, but a different part of the country?
That's a really interesting question. And I don't mind saying this today. It might ruffle some feathers. It might, some players might get upset when I say it, but my teams at Eastern Michigan arguably were as good or better than some of my teams at Cal. And that's not a slap to my teams at Cal. I had some awfully good teams at Cal.
Yeah.
But that team I had at Eastern was so special. I mean, you got to remember, we beat Duke in the opening round, 16 points or 18 points. We're 16 points up on Jim Calhoun's, one of his best teams ever. They were only, I think, 32-1, and we were 16 points up on them. We could have gone and made a run to the Sweet 16 or Final Four, perhaps with that team. And I remember when I was offered the job at Cal, I had to go back. And the first thing I did is I went to Earl Boykins that played for me. Mm-hmm. Earl was maybe pound for pound, the best player I think I've ever coached and maybe I've ever seen, just pound for pound. And, 5'5", 135 pounds, just dominated people and had a mindset like a winner, like you couldn't believe, but he was really tough. And I remember my responsibility was I had to go back to him and I said, Earl, look, I owe you this much. I had a job offer. I didn't go to my AD. I didn't go to anybody else. I don't think I even went to my assistant coaches. And I went to Earl. I said, Earl, I have this job offer. Before I consider this job, I want to know how you feel about this. And he gave me kind of a blessing. He said, Coach, you've taken this team as far, maybe as far as you can take us. And he said, you got to do what's best for you and your family. He says, I'll be all right, or we're going to be all right, but you got to do what's best for you. And I always remember that from Earl. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad he didn't say, no, you need to stay, because I would have been really pressured at that point to make a life, a life decision. Wow. But he said, go ahead and make it. And then I went in and saw my AD, and who wasn't as kind to me. I don't think I was happy about it. Mm-hmm. And then I had to break it to my coaches and my team. But that was a tough decision. But I think I did the right thing. I think I went and I wanted to honor a commitment I made to Earl and his family that I'd be there for him. because that always comes up in recruiting. Hey, coach, you're going to be here, you're 4 years. I don't think a coach can ever know that he'll be there 4 years, but he can say in his heart, what his intentions are. So that's why I had to go back. And then, I got the Cal job, and that was not an easy job. We were losing recruits. We were on probation, almost got the death penalty. And then I was wondering, had no gym. I only had a gym for 1 year, Harmon Gym. We went undefeated there, went to a Sweet 16, which was great. It was a honeymoon. But after that, we didn't have a gym. We had to play in the Oakland Coliseum. And I was losing recruits like the Collins twins. People said, hey, I can't come. You guys are on probation. Parents said, we like you. We'd like to send our kids there, but they're not going to come because we were on probation. So that was tough. And a year from now, I was having to think about that. And I had job offers to leave that year. I had a couple of jobs in the Big Ten that offered me, a couple of programs offered me jobs. But my AD, John Kasser, who just died recently, convinced me to stay and said, look, you're going to love this new arena. You love it there. My wife, who was my girlfriend then, still, was there. I had opportunities to, think about staying at Cal and making that my home. And I have no regrets. That was the best decision, the best of my life. My dad, God rest his soul, it's a year ago today that he died.
Oh, wow.
Before his 91st birthday. So I got to light that candle tonight, guys. You know about that.
Right.
Yeah. But I remember him saying to me, I got a job offer back then. This was 20 years ago. And I said, Dad, this school just offered me $10 million contract. I said, can you think of one reason why I should leave Cal? He said, my dear son, he said, do you love it? Do you love it there? I said, yeah. Do you like what you're building there? Yeah. Do you like the people you work for, the AD, your kids? I said, yeah. He said, I can't think of one reason why you should leave Cal. I said, oh, good. He said, but I could give you 10 million reasons why you might want to leave Cal. And I said, wait a minute. And so then he says, no, I'm just joking. He said, do what's in your heart. And my dad always taught me that because he gave up money. He could have made a lot more money in Hollywood, but he always took, to me, not the money route. He always took the route of the artistic route. He hired directors he was loyal to, actors he was loyal to. He put Muhammad Ali in his first movie. I mean, they were friends. They were neighbors. Wow. He did things for the right reasons, and he was very principled. So I turned that job down and turned a few more jobs down too, but never made money the total factor for making any decision.
Also tied into that, you went through a string there where you had 20-win seasons in 5 years. And how hard is that to do in the Pac-12 when you've got the UCLAs and everything else that's going on? And tied into that, nowadays, how would it be to recruit for Cal with all the political strife that's going on?
It's tough. And you asked a good question. I really have a lot of respect for the coaches in the Pac-12 now. And I'm the commissioner, Larry Scott, who I know. And I think they've done a great job. I know he's under a lot of criticism, pressures. And let me just tell you what he's done for that conference. I wish people would get off his case because that league and what they've done and, since the days I was there is so much further along. I will say that when I was at Cal in that era, when you had Lute Olson and you had Ben Howland and you had Mike Montgomery and you had coaches, you had Ernie Kent at Oregon. I mean, there was Lorenzo Romar. You had teams top to bottom. There were no bad teams. Herb Sendek, no bad teams in the league. I remember my last year at Cal, we won 18, 19 games and we finished second to last place. I mean, there were no easy times there. So that was a really tough time. I remember you playing UCLA when they had 8 guys who played the NBA on the same team and beat that team, by the way. So we were fortunate that we played in an era where it was really, really challenging, but it's also, I think, was the heyday. And I think the Pac-12 will get back to that. They've got a lot of talent. It's always been as in terms of pros, the Pac-12 probably puts out more pros than any other conference. I was fortunate to coach 24 NBA players. Not all at Cal, but most of whom played at Cal. So it was a great thing, but to be able to go 20 wins or just to be competitive, finish in the upper half of the Pac-12, which we did majority of the time, that's not easy to do. You're going to have some off years. Back at Eastern Michigan, we go to the Sweet 16. I'm riding back on the team plane with our vice chancellor at the time, Roy Wilbanks, and he says to me, we're having a drink celebrating. He says, Coach, this is great. He took us to the Sweet 16. I said, yeah, Roy, I hope you realize how special this is. I said, I do, Coach. He said, but next year we're going to the Final Four, right? I said, no, Roy, I'm not sure that Eastern Michigan is going to the Final Four. I think we better enjoy the ride we're on. And I wish more schools would just, as we did at Cal, enjoy the success we had. You're not going to do it every year, but, we went to tournaments 8 of the 11 years we were eligible. including 5 NCAA, 3 NIT. So we won the NCAA tournament. So I mean the NIT tournament. So
Amazing.
Ed Gray doesn't get hurt. Maybe we win the national tournament, because it was Arizona that beat us that year. I mean, I'm sorry, it was Arizona that won the national tournament, and we were the last team to beat Arizona. And Lute Olson, and Lute said, "Hey, your team's better than ours." I remember him telling me that. And then Ed Gray goes out after he scores 48 points in almost one half of action, and then he's out for the rest of the year. And we had to play that tournament without him. So you never know what your future holds. Just enjoy it while you have it. And I'm very proud of what we accomplished at Cal, and I think Cal's on the way back. I think they're going to have some success. Mike Montgomery obviously had some success after I left. I always kid him. I said I left him 3 1,000-point scores, though. but he did a really good job coaching. Jerome Randall was Player of the Year there, and they had some success. And I'm really happy for Cal. It's a special place. It really is.
Now you do some broadcasting.
Yes, I do.
And during the pandemic, before we touch on that, you talked about, I went back 5 years on your Twitter account. Very interesting, a lot of the things that you talk about and tweet about. And, you could just do a lot of things. But during the pandemic, you talked about how you listened to the coaches during the NABC's webinar series. And I'm curious, between broadcasting and what you learned during the pandemic, because I listened to every single coach that came on that webinar series. It was fascinating to me. And I'm a professional basketball skills trainer. I coached college ball a long time, not at the level that you were at, but I'm always wanting to learn. What coaches have stood out to you as a broadcaster, and when you listened, maybe that you didn't know until you covered them, for the Pac-12 network, or listening to them during this webinar series that NABC hosted, that you were like, wow, I had no idea, or you were fascinated by them?
That's a hard question. There's so many coaches. I mean, through the years, I've been so fortunate to coach against the best in the business. And I'm really impressed with some of the younger coaches that are coming up today. I got the chance to know Bobby Hurley's dad, Bob Sr., when he was coaching it. He had me down and treated me like royalty. Yeah, at St. Anthony's. I'm like, Coach, why are you treating me so well? He says, no, Coach, I respect you. I followed your programs. I didn't know he knew who I was. And I told Bobby that. And then I go watch Bobby coach, and he's a chip off the old man's block. I mean, he's a tough guy.
Fireball.
But he, and he gets criticized. But I'll tell you, he's a fireball of a coach. He does a heck of a job. I've gotten to know Dana Altman over the years and the job he's done. Mark Fox, who's now at Cal, and the challenge he's taking on. But there's so many coaches that I respect today that, not only do I get to see when I'm covering their games. Keith Dambrot, the coach for me, is now at Duquesne. I don't think if there's ever a more underrated coach in the country, he's got to be it. He had 12 21 seasons in a row at a mid-level school. You just don't do that anymore. And look what he's done at Duquesne. They told him he couldn't win there. People were told him he was nuts, and he asked me, am I crazy to take this job? I said, no. I said, you're who you are. You'll win wherever you go. And he has. And so I'm impressed with what he's done. And, so many coaches I know that have gone on and become successful, but are continuing to do well. And if you look at the common thread they have, they're guys, again, that can teach, that have tremendous relationships and respect from their players. If you can do that, you can coach. You cannot coach. Joe Pasternak's a former assistant of mine, and look what he's done at UC Santa Barbara. 21 seasons in a row. You don't do that very often there. He and Russ Turner have had really model programs in the Big West. I'm so impressed. Randy Bennett, who's damn near a neighbor of mine, wants to know why I never played him more. Well, I was smart. I wasn't going to play his team. Randy, my son's gone to his camp, and he says, hey, I got your son Julius. He calls him Dr. J.
Great coach.
But, look at the job Randy's done. I sit into his practices. I cover his games. He's a friend, but, he's really an under the radar coach. I know Mark Few gets all the credit in the league, and he should. I know Mark and competed against Mark. But Randy Bennett's just, he's a guy that's just year in and year out, probably could go to a lot of schools, but he stayed and he's found his own niche. He's at Rick Majerus's dream school, St. Mary's. That's where Rick said he should have coached all those years. But he's in the Bay Area and he's doing well. And, I'm just tickled to see some of these young coaches coming on. Todd Golden at USF and Kyle Smith that's gone out to take on, Washington State, which they said is a challenge. If you're a good coach, there's no challenge. You do what you do, and you do it well. You're going to be successful. I don't care. So, But I've learned through the years. I was fortunate to be around the George Ravelings that did so much, and the Dean Smiths. I didn't know John Thompson well, but I knew him. Al McGuire, I knew Al McGuire, who always told me to keep moving, keep ahead of the posse. He was smart. But these guys were really Lute Olson and I were close, really close. Good, funny Lute Olson story. He was playing golf with my brother, and my brother kept grilling him about, how he set up his press, how he did these things. And finally, Lute says, wait a minute. It just occurred to me, you're out here not playing golf with me. You're trying to give this information to your brother, aren't you? He said, well, I might get some of this to him. He said, but you're talented enough. You'll beat his team anyways. So, but Lute was funny. We used to share a laugh about that. And, Bill Frieder, when he was coaching, still talk to Bill today at Arizona State. I just go back to the relationships in coaching. I could go on, and Bob Huggins, guys I knew coming up at the same time, and he's still doing what he's doing. Jay Wright. These are guys that, I'm just glad they're still coaching, and they're doing well. I'm happy for them.
Yeah, you're very humble. You've always given thanks to where you came from, and that definitely stands out. And, I know you're getting ready to get back on the air. I know you're excited about that. Everyone's excited about college basketball starting the week of Thanksgiving. But during the pandemic, what have you been doing to, stay busy or pivot, show some agility? What have you been doing?
All right. Well, listen, that's a good question. I've done a couple of things. One is I've spent a lot of time with my son and my daughter. My son's 12. He's into tennis and basketball, but he's really good in tennis and pursuing that. My daughter's a good swimmer. They're both good students, thanks to their mom, a Brown graduate. I'm a UW graduate, no, Wisconsin graduate,
right.
But the Ivy League's the Ivy League. But really, she's done a great job with my kids. So I spent time with them, watching them and monitoring them during a really tough time. You got to be careful around your kids during the pandemic and make sure they're balanced and have things in order. I've spoken to a number of my coaching friends. I follow the media. I do follow Twitter. I follow Seth Greenberg and all the people. ESPN. Yeah. Seth was my assistant coach on the Maccabi teams back in Israel. We had a ball, and I'm just so happy for his career. He's, not only was a brilliant coach, but he's a brilliant commentator. He gives great commentary, and I think he's carved out his career. I tell him he's crazy if he ever wants to go back into coaching. Stay with what you're doing.
Yeah, we had him on also. He was great.
I know you did. I know.
Awesome.
I've listened, but Seth is brilliant, and I see some of my former neighbor Jeff Van Gundy's in the mix right now for the Houston Rockets job, and he lived next to me, and I was in Houston, so he may get the job. John Lucas also a candidate there, but I just think you got to stay sharp, sharpen your act. Stay with it, because if you don't, you lose something. You don't, just because we're in a pandemic and we can't travel doesn't mean that we can't stay connected to the game, to the players. I've had a chance finally to catch up with former players, and that's been really rewarding for me. Just checking with them, their families, how are they doing? And that's been really a blessing in disguise, is to stay in touch with them. So I'm hoping to continue to do that, and just, whether there's a pandemic or not, do a better job of staying connected to former players. Although I'll make this point, and I make it to my players. I coached thousands of players. They only had one coach. Easier for them to stay in touch with me than me with them. So I'm making excuses, but I hope they got the point I was making.
Coach, going into this season, we're seeing the uptick in the pandemic. How is college basketball going to be able to pull this off without a bubble model? And can they? I mean, because there's so much money. We all know there is so much money getting these teams to March.
Well, I'll give you a solution, and I think it's a good one. The NCAA, and I've worked with the NCAA. I've worked for the NCAA. I've worked with the ethics committee. I've talked to people on the committee, the NABC, Craig Robinson. But not until the NCAA decides, in my opinion, and puts their money kind of where their mouth is, there's enough money at the NCAA. Make sure everybody is playing on a level playing field. Don't leave it to some prognosticator to pick who's going to be in the tournament. Make it even. Make it fair. Right now, everybody should be in the tournament, in my opinion. You can't have people playing different non-conferences or no non-conference and then decide to stick teams in the NCAA tournament. This is a year where it should be inclusive, not exclusive. Everybody should play in the tournament. I don't care if what you have to do, if it's a week more of tournaments. I don't know that you need the conference tournaments, but you need everybody to play in the tournament. Everybody should go through the same testing. You can't make it so some schools can afford 6 days a week. Some can afford once a week or every 2 weeks. That's improper, imbalanced. not fair to kids' health, their livelihood. There's enough money going around. Make sure that there's uniform testing in the NCAA. Otherwise, we're not going to have a non-conference, and we're not going to get to our season. They're going to be, I'll be on my way to a game. They'll be shut down. There'll be cancellations left and right. You cannot have this being imbalanced. So if you're a conference commissioner, you're an AD, you work for the NCAA, find a way to make this uniform, do what's right. The right thing is to make sure everybody's under the same thing. Let's learn from the NBA. Everybody's under the same conditions in the bubble.
Coach K talked about that, and why hasn't
He
it
was
gotten
right.
more? Why hasn't it gotten more traction?
It should. He was absolutely right. And people say, oh, he did that for a reason. There's political. No, he said what I didn't think any big level Power 5 coach would do, and say, well, let's put everybody in, even though he's at risk of getting upset. I don't care. That's the right thing to do for athletes, right thing to do for every league. I've coached at every level possible, NAI, Division II, NCAA, high Division I, mid-level, high school. So do what's right for the student athletes and for the safety of this game. And let's get everybody tested. Let's get everybody playing. And let's celebrate college basketball. But you can't celebrate if some people are playing and some aren't. Plain, flat out simple.
Could we be going in the opposite direction? Could we be going with men's basketball like the direction that's gone for football? That could this separate the haves and the haves not?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to go that way. And you're going to talk about people having certain leagues. You're talking already about certain people opting out of their own conference to go join another conference. That's the worst thing that's possible for the NCAA. If things were more, there's more a level playing field. We got to, you're never going to separate the money, the alumni, the support, the gate revenues, all those things. But there is enough money going around in the NCAA to make sure everybody's got the same shot. And, let's celebrate this. We can find a way to do that. There are enough people who you could raise money from that would give to this, would make sure everybody had similar testing, that kids wouldn't be at risk. How about, big schools charter? Well, maybe we play, maybe we find a way to play at a certain venue. Maybe we find a way like the Pac12 is doing that. They're finding that, Cal will play somebody that Oregon State just got done playing and that was in a bubble and they tested. So they're playing people that are at low risk. There's ways you can go about doing this.
Well, quite frankly, the airline industry is so decimated right now. They would do a deal with the NCAA at very cut rate to take 50% of United Airlines fleets are parked and 70%, and they're under 70%. So they would do a deal. The other question here is for big time football, basketball, and men's basketball. Do you think this has made it evident that these sports need a commissioner?
Yeah, I think you're right. Gene Smith hired me at Eastern Michigan. He's now the AD at Ohio State. And as you know, Gene's very powerful. And I think Gene's, always done the right thing. I'm hoping that he can get involved with some of this and lead at the highest level. A lot of respect for Gene. He's been around, a kind of a political atmosphere, but he's at the highest level. I'm hoping that people who are sitting on these committees that can reach out and make change. I hope that happens. But you bring up a good point. I mentioned Larry Scott, but influential commissioners getting together and really doing what's right for their conferences and what's right for the game. This is what needs to happen, and it can happen. It's nothing. I don't think this is a pipe dream. I think these things can happen if people would do the right thing. And we're in a political climate where people, as you know, are not always doing the right thing. We're doing what's right for us and for individual groups and money brackets. But if we would do what's right, some of these decisions would be so easy. We have to stop for a second and say, what's right for the economy? What's right for human rights and for the, for people? If we would just do what's right, I think some of these decisions would be so much easier. No question.
Now, you talked about human rights. You were at your freshman year. I think that was were you at Wisconsin? It was D3 school, weren't you, before you transferred to Wisconsin?
Yes, I was at La Crosse. Yes.
At La Crosse.
Wisconsin La Crosse. And then I transferred.
So you were driving home your freshman year, is my understanding, and you were with two African-American teammates, and you had a stereo and a TV in the car, and the cops pulled you over, guns drawn, and they eventually released you. But, you talked about, equality and human rights. And obviously you've been a proponent of the Black Lives Matter movement and this racial reckoning. Talk about that experience.
No, I'll never forget that. I remember it was Marcus McCoy, Gerald Hibbler, two of my closest friends. And these were basketball players. We all grew up in Chicago. We shared high school experiences together, and we're coming back, and they saw this car, this old clunker, which was mine. and these two, larger African-American guys in the car. And we weren't doing anything illegally, but we had a car full of equipment. We had stereos stacked up. Looked like I guess to them, we had just raided a house or something. And they said, all right, whose car is this? Whose equipment is this? And I'm like, I had to talk, my friends were upset. But they were also, this wasn't their first rodeo. They'd been through this, and they're telling me, listen, just stay calm. And I'm trying to tell them to stay calm. I don't know who was more nervous, but I'd never seen anybody draw a gun on me. And then I realized, deep down why they drew that gun. I don't think they were drawing it on me. They saw these guys and they thought what they thought was a recent robbery, and maybe they fit a description, but I got to look firsthand at what it was like to be, Black in America, under suspicion. And they eventually let us go. But,
Wow.
can you imagine how many more people were stopped that didn't have the luxury of having a white friend with them? Or that, when they found out we played basketball for university, they kind of let us go. But imagine if we didn't play basketball, maybe they'd have been a little rougher on us. So, you got to have some sensitivity that these things occur. These are not exaggerated. These things have occurred. And, do I think all policemen are bad? No, but do I think there are a number of stereotypes being executed? And yes, and so we have to improve that. But I'm surprised you remember that story.
Yeah, we did a little prep work. We found a few
Yeah.
things out. But, speaking of that, there's been a collective effort, not just one person, like Colin taking a knee, but this has been the NHL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, the Premier Soccer League, the NBA, the bubble, the wobble. Everyone collectively has gotten on board, and there used to be a fear of ramifications, being blackballed. And now it's a lot easier, I think, to stand up for social injustice. And if you were running a program now, how would you handle that situation with your team? I mean, you've been dealing with that your whole life. You were ahead of the game that way. But, how has that impacted you?
Well, I think number one, there's nothing wrong with taking a stand for something you believe. And what I would say is there's two sides to Colin Kaepernick. He took a stand. We should respect the stand he took. You may have a different take about the national anthem, and maybe you had people in the service, and you may decide that you still want to cover your heart and respect the national anthem. We should be able to respect those views. We shouldn't say one is right, one is wrong. The problem in our country is when you take a stand with one, you think the other stand is completely wrong, and I don't think you need to do that. I think you can. I know that there was a recent NBA. I think it was Myers Leonard said, "Look, I completely stand for my brother, or take a stand for my brothers." And understand taking a knee, but I hope they'll understand while I stand and respect the flag. And I thought that was a respectful way to say, look, I'm 100% behind Kaepernick, everything else. And there's a way we should respect that. There's a way that maybe you can do both. It's not exclusive. It should be inclusive. So that's what I've always taught our players. Understand something, be willing to take a stand, and be sensitive to the other side. Let's listen to the other side. My dad used to say this, most people know what they know. And they really know what they know. But why don't you check out what somebody else knows? You might find something that you didn't know just by listening to others. And I think it's really important. Are all Republicans bad? No. Are all Democrats good? No. Are conservatives and are there, whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, there's some people you can admire on both sides. There's some people you can detest on both sides. And my grandfather used to say that. He said, look, just, being Jewish doesn't mean that you're always good. He said, there are bad Jews. There are good Christians better than a bad Jew. He said this to me all the time. He was deeply religious. He said, I'm sorry. He said, let's understand human nature and that you have the ability to be good at what you are and who you are. But there are bad and good in everybody. But let's try to bring out and recognize the good. And so I've always really appreciated that lesson.
That's awesome. Well, after you coached at Rice, you coached the Oakland Soldiers.
Yep.
Talk about that experience, because that sort of brings everything back home. And why did you do that?
Well, I really wanted to give back to a program that was really good to me over the years, because we recruited a number of players from there. Mark Olivier ran the program. Mark Olivier has run the Oakland Soldiers for 20 plus years, 25 years, and they've done a great job. People give AAU basketball a bad name. But if you look at what they've done for their players, their coaches, and the kids that have gone on to play basketball and they're successful beyond basketball, I've really been impressed with what they did. And they asked me if I would come back to do that, and I did it. I did it for a spring, a summer. We had 11 or 12 players on our team, all of whom received Division I scholarships. That was really
Wow.
an eye-opening experience. 12 players that earned, and now trying to keep all those players happy, that was hard. I couldn't do that. And some of the players that I coached, have gone on to become very successful. They're playing right now. Kihei Clark played on a national championship at the University of Virginia. And he was coming off the bench for us. And so,
Wow.
how about that? And now he's their leading point guard. And,
Amazing.
there were some great players. Tayshaun Cherry's playing at Arizona State. And, there was just some great players. Amadou Sow, who's now playing for a standout player playing for UC Santa Barbara. I can go on and on. His teammates, Tori, just a number of players that played on the team that are so successful. So I really appreciated it. I coached with Chris Weems, who's now with was with the Warriors, and he's doing well coaching G League. So I really appreciate that experience, and got a chance to coach and see some of the top players in the country as high school players. And I'm glad that AAU is, that people realize it's still a pretty good thing. I know people give it a bad rap, but you got to be careful to generalize. AAU provided a lot of people, a lot of players an opportunity to play when maybe their high school program shut down or they couldn't play. And I think you get them a chance to play against some of the top programs, and they got a chance to be seen by some of the top coaches. So I really believe in what the top programs in the AAU are doing.
Yeah, that's good. We had Sam Vincent on, and he,
Yep.
he's involved in, the AAU.
I remember Sam. Sam as a player.
Yeah. So if you were coaching that team now, a lot of kids didn't have the opportunity to get seen this summer, and that might have, hurt them a little bit. But what would you advise them in terms of, if anything different, if they were looked at by these Division I schools or Division II schools?
I would have them do what they're doing now. I'm bringing in a guy here who's coaching my son, who played for the Oakland Soldier, went to Oregon State, should have played for me at Cal. Joe C, standout. Now he's coaching my son in basketball. His son's a stud, by the way. So what would I do? I'd have all the.
He looks 18. How does he have a son old enough to be playing?
I can't hear, but hey.
Oh my God.
On the show
no, he said, podcast. He looks young. He's in fit. He still can shoot. Yeah. He's the only player that could ever outshoot me.
Almost 40 now.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's the only player that could ever shoot better than me.
It looks.
And
20.
I mean that. But these players you see filing past me are all players coming out of what I call individual workouts. They have their own ball. They're in a bubble. They're not touching any other players. They're doing ball handling. They're doing shooting. I would recommend to anybody and everybody to do what this program's doing. David C is his father, who's started Sports Strong. It's a program here in the Bay Area, and I am telling you, these kids are getting a wonderful, wonderful education, but they're getting a chance to work out on a daily basis. My son's staying for two sessions. He'll be by here in a minute, maybe to join us. But that's awesome. You asked me what I would do. I would do exactly what I am doing in getting players to take this kind of approach, because you don't have to sit at home. You can still keep your game sharp.
I know John's asked this question before, and Howard got a top 5-star player. And do you think that's an aberration? Do you think that's a trend that
No, I don't. I think we got to understand that the historic black colleges not only are good colleges, but they're being coached by some very good coaches now. They're very competitive, and they're very I'd say traditional leagues. I don't think that's something you're going to see the last of. I wouldn't, I think that's something you're going to see more of. I don't think you should just, it's kind of like, why did a player not go to a top 20 program? Well, you don't have to have a great experience just because you weren't in the top 20 program. I think that's such a misnomer. Well, play with our program, we're going to be top 20. Well, what about play with our program because we have a good coaching staff, because you're going to improve, you're going to learn, you're going to travel, you're going to see the world, you're going to have a great degree, you're going to be around great alumni. What's wrong with that? And I was fortunate, both Cal and Rice in Eastern Michigan, we had great alumni, we had great traditions, but we also had great alumni. We had great educational and academic exposure. And so, players, I think, benefited from that. And certainly going to a historical black college and university, you're going to see more of it. I don't think you're going to see less of it. And players shouldn't be made to feel like they missed out on any opportunity, and they can get to an NCAA tournament from that. So they're not going to miss out. I think it's something that you have to respect when players decide to do that, especially in this time too, where, you know, there's some places that are being under suspicion now. They're under investigation, maybe not having run a program. Sometimes racially, with the racial sensitivity, they should have run it. And I'm not casting any aspersions. I'm just saying that those things are happening. And so, it's okay for people to want to be in I think a solid situation.
Definitely. I got one more question before we get to the this or that exciting segment of the podcast. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the season. Obviously, it's a fluid situation. When, things could change a week before the tournament starts. We saw Nick Saban, is back on the sidelines for tonight's game. It's very up and down. But what are your thoughts on this year's college basketball season and dark horses?
I want to see
the top teams.
Yeah, I want to see it get to the conferences. I don't know how this non-conference is going to go. There's going to be some bumps along the line, some hiccups. There may be some programs shutting down temporarily until our kids get cleared. Because again, we're not under the same protocols for testing. One program gets a test, all of a sudden the program shuts down for 14 days. Another program gets a test, that kid shuts down for 14 days. So different programs under different protocols. That's got to change. Otherwise, again, we're not going to have any semblance of a non-conference season. But once we get into the conference, I hope that familiarity and leagues can play their conferences without incident, and we can get to a national tournament. We really need to get there, and then hopefully there'll be vaccines by then. There'll be solutions, and for better or for worse, we're going to have our president decided. We're going to be in not a political quandary. We're going to be here we are politically. Again, better or for worse, here we are. Now let's decide what we're going to do. But we need to get past that, the election, and just get to a better space. But I really hope basketball can come back. Certainly football is trying hard now. We're going to see how football goes. If football can get through it, then I think basketball has a chance. I really can't wait to get back on the sidelines, get back to calling games and being around the game, the players, the coaches, the fans too. I mean, we as fans, I'm a fan too. I'm a coach, but I'm a fan. And it was hard. I was watching the NBA, and fortunately, we were able to do that. That brought a lot of good feeling back to be able to watch. LeBron James, a player that I recruited and I've known over the years, just to see him go and get his championship, and people saying there's a star by his record and by the Lakers. I agree. There is a star. They're going to say this was the most difficult challenge of every year. I'm the opposite. I don't think this is the easiest. This was the toughest. This was the toughest road to any championship, and I'll stand by that. You put players in a bubble and have them stay there for 3 or 4 months. That can't be easy, away from their families. I commend every player that got in that bubble and competed in it. And to everybody's a champion. I don't care if they won the championship or not. You're a champion for doing that. So are the coaches and the organizations.
No, it wasn't even close to baseball or anything like that. Shortened season. No. They played a full season, definitely. All right, we'll leave the table for you at the end, but let's get to it. All right, here we go. Doodle in your notebook in middle school or send a secret note to a friend or a secret admirer.
So I'm supposed to tell you who that is?
No, you're supposed to. So you got to tell us if you would either be doodling in a notebook, just drawing, or would you have preferred to send a secret note to a friend or secret admirer?
I would be doodling. I'm kind of a doodler. I like doing that. That's my forte. I'm not a secret squirrel.
Okay, you're a doodler. 45s or 8-tracks?
Oh, wow. Oh, 45s, they're still relevant. 8-tracks, you can't find those anymore. 45s are still the real deal.
They are.
I have my vinyl. I still got my vinyl.
Okay, I'm going to ask a different question at the end, but I'm going to ask this one now. If you had one scholarship or preferred walk-on spot available, would you take John or me?
Oh, man, why you guys do me like that? I mean, come on. I would take you both, even if one of you were a walk-on. Yeah, by the way, nobody played more walk-ons than I did. I started walk-ons. I had a walk-on, Derek Dial, that was drafted and played in the NBA. I've had players that were walk-ons. I'm big on that. I'm not big on scholarship versus non-scholarship. If you can play, you can play. And both you guys can play for me.
There we go. That's what I like to hear. All right. As a kid, walking to school or riding your bike?
Oh, man. I walked to school my first day when I was 6 years old. My mother walked me to school. And then she said, okay, now just find your way home on the way back. Here's the fork in the road, and you come back. So sure enough, I walked back, took the wrong fork, was in tears, and somebody found me. But back then, I couldn't believe my mother. That was child abuse. 6 years old, left me there. So I'm going to take my bike now. Just because that experience, I think, scarred me for life. My kids will never walk to school, especially at age 6. She thought I was smarter than I was.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so
That's true.
You played shortstop. That was another passion of yours.
Yep.
You loved baseball. So Derek Jeter or Ernie Banks?
See, you're killing me right now. Ernie Banks was my heart, my soul. I grew up. He was my hero. It will always be Ernie Banks, but big respect for Derek Jeter and his longevity. But Ernie Banks, to me, was more than just a baseball player. His attitude, his play 3 today. He never had a bad word to say about anybody. He was fun. He was fun loving. That guy was just the perfect role model, perfect hero for me. I wore 14 my whole career because of Ernie Banks.
Wow, there you go. That's amazing statistic right there. Now, you had Gail Sayers at your house as a birthday present, didn't you?
Yeah. How do you guys know all this stuff? You guys do your homework. I'm impressed.
That's amazing.
I better take a page out when I do all my work on TV. I got to start doing my homework now. Yeah, I did. My father invited him over, and that was really a treat because he was such a phenomenal player when he was at the Bears, but he was also a well-spoken, quiet guy. And I met his wife as well, but just a nice man. And spoke to him years later too to remind him of that. And he remembered.
Wow, that's amazing.
And just died recently.
Very sad.
We'll never see another runner ever, in my opinion, that could do what he could do. I do say that if LeBron James pursued football, he'd have been that kind of special player as well. But I don't think anybody would have run the ball as well as what Gail Sayers. He
played a total of 63 games.
No, it's ridiculous. Yeah,
I mean, it's unbelievable.
We'll never see it. We'll never see him run. Even after he got injured and came back, what he did, nobody could run the football and do what he could do. And people who really know the game will tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, you were at the Cubs game when Steve Bartman reached over the wall 2 rows behind him, and you had to call security because it was getting out of hand. What was that experience like?
Well, I'm going to bust myself. I was there on a recruiting trip. And I told my AD that at the time. And I did. I recruited actually Whitney Young High School, but I actually stayed an extra day just to make sure those recruits were doing okay. The Cubs. So I found my way there. And then I found my way having to stay again because I blew game 6 and they had to go to game 7. I was there with a former player of mine, Derek Goheen, that played for me at Eastern Michigan. We scored some tickets. My brother flew in for the game as well. And we were there. And I remember Bartman, with that whole mishap. And then I remember people throwing beer on him and throwing bottles at him. And pretty soon there were some unfriendlies circling around him. And I don't believe he was going to get out of there alive. And I'm saying to myself, he wasn't the only one that reached for the ball. And, maybe you and I would have reached for the ball too. I would have thought that we wouldn't have because we were diehard Cub fans. But I said, just instinctively, maybe reach for it. And I called security and I said, hey, you got to come down here, Andy Freinenschers or whatever. They said, yeah, we can't believe this guy. I said, no, you got to save this guy. They're going to kill him. They were mad at him too. And sure enough, they ushered him up and out and they covered him up because there was some bodily harm going to be done. And then I didn't realize till later, they disguised him and got him out of Wrigley Field and took him to, home safely. Because I don't know that he would have made it out of there alive. The Cubs fans,
wow,
they were gonna find a black cat or a goat or something, and he'd have been both of those things.
Wow.
But true story. No, it's a true story.
Amazing. Okay, the Flintstones or the underrated Mr. Magoo?
Oh, Mr. Magoo. My best friends, Lou Reno, my associate for all these years, calls me Mr. Magoo because he's been with me on so many driving trips. He said, the way you drive, you're Mr. Magoo. And I got that from my grandfather, Julius, who never used his turn signal. I said, Grandpa, why don't you ever use your signal? He said, it's a waste. So what do you mean? He says, if you've gone too far, you're either going to hear a horn honk or you're going to hear metal scraping. So I've kind of adapted that thing. You don't need a horn, just, you'll know if you've gone too far. So I've never been in an accident, but I've caused many.
Lucy or Bewitched?
Oh, Lucy, yeah. Come on. I love Bewitched because I had a thing for Elizabeth Montgomery, and who didn't? But Lucy was a classic. I mean, Come on, she's a comedian of all time.
She is. Magnetic spinning wheel toy, the Wii Low, or a dreidel.
Oh, a dreidel. Come on, dreidel, dreidel, dreidel. They made it out of. Yeah. Come on. You're going to ask me. You guys are going to ask me about that. Come on.
All right. So your son's a basketball player and a tennis player. Is he better on the baseline or at the net?
He's better at the baseline. I'm trying to get to the net. Not that I'm ever did that, but I like the net now. It's easier. You get older, you got to play the net.
Definitely.
But he's getting better. He's got great ground strokes. He's got better ground strokes than me, but he's not going to beat me because I have, as he says to me, he says, "Why are you so competitive?" I said, "Do they keep score?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Then I'm going to be, that's what you're competitive for. If they keep score, you be competitive." So he's got to get a little bit of nastiness to his game. I was not a very good sport, and I'm still not. I don't like to lose. I'll do whatever it takes. But if my son can get that part of me in his blood, he's going to be pretty special. But he's a good player. He really hits the ball well.
Wow.
Yeah, you definitely have that competitive spirit. Pancakes, waffles, or French toast with challah?
Oh, all the above. Why does there have to be a limit? I'm a chazan.
There you go.
No, I like waffles probably the best. I don't know why I like waffles. Maybe because I know that there's some places you can get chicken and waffles. And if you've had good chicken and waffles, Roscoe's in in LA, or if you've gone to Lois the Pie Queen in the Bay Area, I mean, there's nothing like waffles and chicken and waffles. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we have to have John. Anytime somebody chooses waffles as an answer, share his Waffle House story with you.
I spent a lot of time down south, and I'm a big fan of the waffle. I'm a big fan of the Waffle House, and one of the underestimated things at Waffle House is you go to the All-American, but it's not on the menu. But if you ask the waitress for an extra waffle, they'll usually throw it on for only $1. And so you're getting, for like $8, you're getting 4 waffles, hash, toast, coffee, and eggs.
You and me are going on a road trip. When COVID lifts, you and I are going on a road trip. People ask me and my buddy Bill Haddis, growing up, who played basketball for University of Arizona, or baseball, should have played basketball. He and I grew up together. Was drafted to pros. They said, "What do you guys want to be when you grow up?" And we were we always said we wanted to be truck drivers. And they said, "That's what you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "Absolutely. Why do you want to be a truck driver?" I said, "Because I want to go to every truck stop there is and eat every meal." And I would stop at every, like you say, Waffle House. I come on. There's nothing like diners and truck stops.
Right.
That was my goal.
Delis,
and I still haven't.
Right.
No, yeah. So you and I are going to do a road trip, and we're going to.
I'm in.
No, we're in. And there's no, just guard your plate. I've been told that I eat off people's plate. And I have an extension fork too, by the way, which I used on my first date with my wife. And I didn't use it on her plate. I used it on a neighbor. And she almost walked out of the restaurant with me. But so we're going to go do that.
That sounds
Speaking
good.
of your wife, dishes or vacuuming?
I'll do the dishes. I hate vacuuming.
Candy or popcorn at the movies?
Popcorn at the movies. There's nothing like, you cannot get popcorn that tastes like movie popcorn. Anywhere you can make it your own, put all the butter. Movie popcorn is special.
True story. In New York and Boston right now, the movie theaters that aren't showing movies, they're selling popcorn, and people are
absolutely.
waiting.
I go to
people
ours.
are paying $20 for the bucket to take it home.
Absolutely.
No. True story.
Manish Tana. Why should this?
That's right. Totally.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So listen. Now you haven't got to the delis yet. Come on, man.
I know.
All right, so a couple more. LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, or James Wiseman, top pick this year?
Wow. Anthony, Melo.
All right. 7 seconds left. You're up 3, and the other team has the ball. Do you foul or let them shoot?
What's the score? You said what's the score?
You're up 3.
Oh, I have 7 seconds to go. Wow. It better be foul, having practice fouling. But if my players, I don't think, can do that, I'm going to intentionally foul somebody or give them an and one. I'm playing it out because the worst you can do is tie.
Right.
But I've seen people go to the foul line, miss the free throw, offensive foul, rebound. But I think you almost, if you have rebounding, I did that, by the way, and we were lucky to win. I don't know. That's still one of the great. They say the odds are with you not to foul, but when somebody sends that in overtime, you can screw the odds. That's the hardest question ever. I'm still undivided about that one.
I know you're proud of Jason Kidd. He just, as an assistant coach, just won a ring, and Tony Gonzalez has had a lot of success. But if you had to choose Jordan or LeBron, who are you going with?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Jason. I don't think Jason Kidd has ever gotten his due on how valuable he was to the game of basketball, what he meant to Cal, and I helped him get his jersey retired. And believe it or not, there was opposition to that, which there never should have been, because he didn't graduate. And that's just wrong. But Jason Kidd was special. I'm glad you mentioned Jason. I just spoke with him recently, and he's special. But you're asking about LeBron. I'm biased in that I think that I know both. I know LeBron. I've only met Jordan a couple of times. Was very nice, gracious to me. Jordan had a competitive spirit I don't think we'll ever see the likes of. And so that's why he's on one end, he's the greatest. On one hand, he's the greatest. But I don't think you'll ever see anybody do as many things as LeBron can do. And for that reason, I think he's the greatest for his total package he brings. But if you're saying, you had one game, one shot, one moment, that's tough. Jordan's hard to argue with. But LeBron will make the right play for your team. And I think he's always done that. Jordan did that later in his career, and LeBron's done that from day one. He's always been about winning. He played for Keith Dambrot, one of my best friends, and I remember him even in high school. I spoke at their high school banquet, and I commended LeBron and his team then because he always made his teammates better than they really were, and that was all LeBron. He always made his team better, and they won state tournament after state tournament, and they didn't have to. They weren't always the most talented team.
That's awesome. Okay, last question. Chicago Brothers Pizza or Zachary's Chicago Pizza?
Now, you're not going to believe this, but I don't think I've been to Chicago Brothers Pizza.
Wow, that's in Chicago.
How is that possible? I've been to every pizza place in Chicago. And you name it. You name any other pizza place, from Malnati's to Due to Uno's to Giordano's to Gino's. I've been everywhere.
Wow.
Home run pizza, but I don't remember Chicago.
I'll take a replace. How long has it been around, Mike?
I think
Probably
Chicago
not
Brothers
as round.
Probably too new. So, Coach, I'm going to pitch hit. You're probably the biggest deli expert we've had on the show.
Oh.
So, people going to a deli, whether I don't care if it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, what is the number one thing you're looking for on the menu when you go to a good deli?
Okay, yeah, because I don't know. We can't solve the debate on which is better. I can tell you, I've been to Barney Greengrass there, and if you want lox and sturgeon, you go to Barney Greengrass. There's no ifs, ands, and buts, end of debate. But many places do what's called matzah brai for our non-Jewish followers, and that is matzah cooked in with scrambled eggs and onions and lox, and if you have a good matzah brai, you bring out the sour cream, the maple syrup, and you make it a schmear. You put it all together. But you got to have good matzah brai, to me, if you're a good deli. And then obviously, you better have a good corned beef, and you better have a good pastrami. If those things aren't flying, I'm saying goodbye. You can't have a good deli and not have good corned beef. And the corned beef and the pastrami's got to be moist. It can't be dry. And the rye bread's got to have that crunchiness on the outside, and the rye bread's got to be chewy on the inside.
And
can't be dry.
And there also can't be pictures of the sandwiches. If there's pictures of the sandwiches, it's not a good deli. Get out. Leave right there.
My dad.
It should be like a menu on a piece of paper that was Xerox.
Absolutely.
That's a good deli.
It came in handy once. My dad, who had low blood sugar, and Braun's, we all suffer for that. We would go crazy if we hadn't eaten. And this waiter was taking too long at the deli. And he said, look, I'm going to repeat this one more time. And the guy screwed it up again. He says, never mind. He rips out the pictures, hands to him. I want this. Can you see this? Go bring me 2 of those. And we got kicked out of the deli after that. So, don't go in with low blood sugar.
Right.
But but a good deli also, I'm not a sour pickle guy. I'm a new pickle guy.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, the greener the pickle, the fresher the pickle, the better for me. So I like new pickles. A lot of people like the sour, the dill. Dambrot and I argue all the time. He eats the sour ones, I eat the new ones. No, we have a great marriage. When we go out to eat, we can take a pickle barrel and we're going to find our own pickles. But no, there's you got to do that. And I think potato latkes too. That's got to be with applesauce.
Of course.
People say you don't eat it with applesauce. I don't know what planet they're from, but you got to have applesauce and sour cream with potato latkes. And so you got to have good potato latkes too.
Well,
and Saul's Deli, by the way, and Peter Levitt, who owns it, tries to sell it. He's not having any luck because he can't find a good Jewish owner. So he's holding on to this place. I hope he'll hold on to it forever. Otherwise, you three, we're all going to go in and buy the place.
There you go.
Good.
Well, if you come out to San Diego, we'll go to DZ Aikens and
that's a deal.
It's a deal.
I'll be there to do some games. So
yes,
buyer beware.
Yeah, Brian's doing a great job out here at San Diego State.
Sure is.
All right. Anything
Dutch.
else? Yeah, Dutch. Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to let
No,
everybody
but
know? We're going to talk
no,
about voting when I, do some editing.
No, I want to say this. I hope you guys will continue your platform because you're doing something that's so important for kids, for coaches, for fans, administrators alike. I think to be able to get the people you got on, and I'm just flattered that you guys have gotten me on there, but to be able to talk about things, Laura Ingraham, I call her Laura Ignoramisham from Fox News,
Right.
told LeBron to shut up and dribble because she's threatened by what he says. Plus, it doesn't fit the narrative. He's not getting paid. You can't pay him off to do what they're paying off. Unfortunately, some of these, I think they're brilliant people at some of these at Fox and CNN, but you got to do the right thing. And I pick on her, but she's a smart woman. But, to tell an athlete to shut up and dribble, a black athlete, but to let the white athletes go ahead and talk, that's not just. There's nothing right about that. Drew Brees, who's very brilliant in his own way and who, by the way, gets it. He understands. He was never been a racist, never has been. But, he listens to what people say. I think this forum and what you're doing is great during the pandemic. The more people that can latch on to podcasts, that can give up their time. If I can get a deli for doing this, you've paid me off in spades. But I think more people should give up their time. And you guys are doing a great job. The questions you ask, the sensitivity, I really commend you on what you're doing. And I'm going to continue to listen to what you guys do because you do it well, and you do it. You can tell your connection to the game is more than just guys doing something social in a social climate. You get it, and I appreciate you
Thanks,
guys
Coach.
for what you do. Yeah, I really do.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate it. We got
a lot
Mike
of fun.
Jarvis. We got Mike Jarvis coming on this week, so we're excited to have him on.
Give him my best. Mike knows me well. Please give him my best.
I will, definitely. All right, Coach.
And he's Jewish, but he's Jewish, by the way.
Right.
He'll tell you a story about how Jewish he is when you get him on, but he's
because
honorary.
he had Scotty as his assistant. That's why.
Scott Beaton. He's honorary, and when you have Beaton that long, you're Jewish. But yeah, get him on there. He'll tell. He's got more Jewish stories than you and I together. Trust me.
That's hilarious. That's great. All right, Coach. We'll be in touch. Thanks for everything. Good luck with the college
Thank you,
basketball.
Coach. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Mask up. Yeah.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Coach. I think he's still on. He stopped the video, but he still has the audio going. Well, that was fun. He was
great.
amazing. Yeah. Good stories. Good thoughts. He's always been forward thinking in how he's seen the world and basketball. And so it's cool to hear him share it with us. All right. Well, until next time, we'll see you on Wednesday. Appreciate the fellowship and have a good weekend.
Enjoy those Chargers.
I'm not a Chargers fan. I'm a Lions fan, and I hate to admit it, but God. Later. All right, everybody. Much love. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for sharing space with us today. We truly hoped you enjoyed that amazing interview. Remember, everyone, Black Lives Matter. Stop the bullying. Stop the Asian hate. Contact your local and state politicians for any inequalities, for any individual or any group that's being marginalized. Also, everyone, we want to raise awareness for those individuals that are currently imprisoned for non-violent offenses, in particular those with long-term sentences that are disproportionate, in particular to those people in the Black and Brown community. And I want to send a shout out to 40tons.co. 40 Tons is a socially conscious cannabis brand, and they're a social enterprise using the regulated cannabis industry to fight injustice, in particular for cannabis prisoners. So check them out again at 40, the number 4, the number 0, tons, plural, 40tons.co, because what they're doing in the cannabis space and being a socially conscious company is truly incredible, and they have my full support. And also wanted to remind all of you, if you're having a tough time, you can always call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and that number is 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, and they are available 24/7 365 days a year. You can also always check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at Mike Hootner. Thanks again to our amazing sponsors, Breaking Tea, Sport RX, PSK Collective, City Lokes, and Moolah Kicks, which you can see right here up on the screen. You can search them online at breakingtea.com, sportrx.com, pskcollective.com, moolahkicks.com, and citylokes.com. And if you'd like to support us at the Sports Deli, we'd love to have you either make a one-time donation or feel free to make a donation monthly, either 99 cents a month, $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month. If you have questions about that, send me an email again to thesportsdeli@gmail.com, and I will send you the link on how you can do that. You can also find it at the bottom of every podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Link at the bottom to support the show. Please check out our website at thesportsdelipodcast.com. Make sure that we continue the conversations with regards to 3 strikes and you're out and mandatory minimums, especially people that are in jail for non-violent offenses. So those things need to change. And remember, gents and ladies, please remember to do your monthly self-breast examinations. And remember, guys, this afflicts about 1,500 men annually, with about a third of those resulting in death. So we want to make sure that we do our monthly self-breast examinations, both men and women. And guys, remember to do your self-testicular examinations every month as well. Until next time, remember it takes a village. For Dr. J and Coach K, I'm Hootie Hoot. This has been a production of Hootie Hoot Productions. Thank you for joining us in the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. Remember, it takes a village. Much love, everybody. Peace. Hey everyone, if you're still with us, we hope you enjoyed today's outtakes from today's podcast. So do you think we should start the way that we normally do, just in terms of, can you hear me or no?
Hold on.
I want Trevor Lawrence.
Are they any good? Can you hear me?
Those are worse.
I can't, they're not, I don't think they're working anymore.
Yeah, that you sound like you're literally in a well. Now the other ones are okay. Put the other ones back on. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So I don't know where you think we should start. Like, you know, we've consistently sort of started with the chronology of things.
Sure.
But I do want to talk to him more than anyone probably about white privilege, because he's the classic definition of white privilege. And he told me off the air that he had a sit-in at Eastern Michigan. They had to clear the court and the fans all had to leave. They locked the doors, and I'm pretty sure he's going to tell the story, but they had to play the game in front of no fans. Nobody knows that.
Wow.
But I think he'll be comfortable talking about his white privilege and admit that he is white privilege, and he's tried to maybe demystify or do a lot of things to, you know, speak out. I went back 5 years on his Twitter, and he's always a proponent of equality, social injustice, not like Esherick,
Right.
but sort of a different way.
Yeah. I'm
So I
curious.
don't know where you think we should start.
That's fine. I mean, I think you can just say, maybe we just start, what's the landscape? How do you see the landscape? You know, if you were at Cal nowadays, what would you be doing with your team? You know,
You don't think I should start with his early years?
Yeah, I think that would be, you know, your early years. What would your early years, yeah. Are you, so, you know, based on your early years, are you surprised where we are as a society now?
But he started at D3 too. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I'm also curious. I mean, maybe we won't get to it. Is why the hell would he go to Rice? You can't win at Rice.
I don't think he had another choice.
Yeah, then just stay unemployed. Collect a check. I mean, he went right away.
Yeah, maybe he
anyway.
wanted to prove that they made a mistake.
Yeah.
But if you look at Rice, Rice is deceptive also. He had 3 years where he was building again.
17 and 15, 8 and 8. They went,
exactly.
and then they torpedoed the next 2 years because guys transferred. He lost a guy to Oregon. One of his prize recruits went to Oregon.
But he was building though. I mean, you're not going to win at Rice.
No.
So to do what he did there to go 17 and 15, have they ever been to the tournament since then?
They didn't go to tournament then. They went to the CIT that year.
But did they ever go to the tournament since he's been there?
Oh, no.
I mean, I
I don't even know if they've won 10 games since he left.
I mean, to your point about Sam Vincent, that 17 and 15 record is as impressive as Sam Vincent's 32 wins.
Correct.
With Orlando.
Right.
Is Gordon going to join us? That is the question.
No.
I think he is. I think he's going to, try and join late, but he's shady. You like my background? Do you think I should lower it or no?
That's good. It's good.
I added the I told you last time the hoodie, the LeBron hoodie, the more than.
Oh yeah.
Did I tell you I got is November 1st good for you for the soccer player? She's good, man. She's legit.
Probably.
But I called the Breaking Tea, the company that makes these hoodies for Bet on Women. It says Bet on Women on the front. They make other ones too. If you actually look, you'll like a lot of them. They have these like catchy phrases for DC and like all kinds of pro and college teams, like like talking shit T-shirts, like
right.
Beat LA and stuff like that. But they're giving me at cost. Normally they're $58, and she's giving them to me. The company's giving them to me for $22.
Cool.
And then the WNBA hoodies, the orange ones, they're giving them to us for 50% off at the high school. Nice. I want those to be our 2 travel hoodies to sort of support the WNBA and stuff. So we'll see. So as I said earlier, the 3 things that stood out, probably a 4th, but he rebuilt EMU and Cal and Rice. Like it wasn't like he was handed. I mean, one of the years at Cal, he was handed a decent team.
Yeah, you know who was on that team, don't you? You know who his star was? Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I was at that game when they beat Villanova to go to the Sweet 16. I was at that game in Winston-Salem in '97.
Oh yeah, make sure you bring that up.
Yeah.
But he was a high school coach for only 2 years, like I said, and then he was a minor in African American studies.
And then the other
75. I didn't even know they had that major in 75.
The other thing is he went to Eastern Michigan as an assistant coach.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know if Jim Boyce was the coach. I don't know who was the coach back then.
I have no idea.
Amazing. I went to their camp too.
Wow.
I know. He's at his kids' tennis thing today. So, today's This or That is funny. I've had a few people tell me that they love the This or That more than any part of it, especially if they don't know anything about it. You guys are going to start joining it. Wait, I have a question. I want to add a This or That question to this segment. I really want to get some more sponsors.
We need to get more non-basketball people.
No, I agree. I mean, I've reached out. I've probably sent 150 messages to football guys. I haven't done much with baseball yet, but
there's got to be some San Diego Charger guys hanging around. Like Rodney Harrison.
Well, Rodney Harrison. I mean, I asked Antonio Gates. I coached his brother, and he won't answer. He won't answer his own cousin. So I definitely want to get some football guys on. We will. And this is just who our contacts are right now. So. But if we get a soccer player and we get if we get Judy Sweet, that'll be cool too, man. She's amazing.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily something that moves people, but to have, if you had her and Lapchick on, like 2 of the most influential people in all of sports, like ever, like that's pretty impressive. Nobody knows who Judy Sweet is. She should get some. Lapchick thought that the college rule for the Rooney Rule should be her name. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, females weren't ADs back then.
Right.
I mean, she said in one article that there were 12 males at UCSD and just her, and she was undermined and, hate mail and all kinds of stuff for years. Wow. And she just took it. I want Trevor Lawrence.
The Lions will win 2 games, just to stick it to you.
Braun's ready. You ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it. We're recording. Yeah. Coach.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Coach.
Are we in?
We're good.
We're good.
I may have to get out of here. I got a basketball thing going on.
Oh, I was gonna say I didn't know if it was basketball or tennis. I was gonna say live from Flushing Meadows.
I can go in a quieter room maybe. Is it pretty distracting?
No, it sounds fine to me.
Fine.
I don't know if you can see all the basketball.
Is that an AAU tournament?
No, it's just practice. My son's practicing basketball. It's only fitting that you hear basketballs, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. We love it. Love the whistles in the background. It's outstanding.
There, I can hear you now, I think.
Okay, good.
I'm on the earpods now.
Do you have the
I
video?
gotta go back to the meeting. Hold on, I'm going back.
There you go.
There it is.
There we go. I'm Jewish. This is out of my territory. I know delis, by the way. We should talk about delis because I'm an expert on delis.
Yes, we definitely should.
Absolutely. The top 10 delis in each city.
I grew up in Chicago,
Right.
and there were some pretty good delis there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, we are
I
now.
gotta make sure I don't look like a.
No, you look great.
Yep.
You look at Steve Lavin when we had him on. He was a little disheveled with his vino and in his backyard. The lighting was off. We were very confused because this is a very popular television guy, and you thought you were a little disheveled. You look great compared to Steve.
Well, I don't know about that, but